You are listening to the Elemental Podcast.
Shut up!
I'm so over keeping secrets. The sacred things that make me human. I know I'm what you're looking for. Oh no 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 no, nevermore. La 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 la. Call me a big mouth, big mouth, big mouth.
Welcome to my mind. My name is Al Nichols, and you're listening to the Elemental Podcast. This is entry number 124. I'm kind of taking a staycation this week. I don't even know how to take a vacation, and I wouldn't even know where to go. And since the world is in a perpetual state of lockdown, because, well, you know, selfish people who, quite frankly, won't listen to anyone and do a goddamn thing to help anyone, including themselves, kind of make it impossible to make long-term plans. And, you know, it's interesting. So things in my life have been going very well. I started thyroid medication recently, and the results have been amazing. And I actually think they're going to translate here to the podcast as well. So this is odd, but I really did not have a strong understanding of what the thyroid did. Not that that part is odd. I think a lot of people don't really know about their thyroid. In fact, I think a lot of people are miseducated or don't really receive any kind of education about what the thyroid does. They don't have a really proper understanding, but it really does affect so much in your body. And over the last year, I'm really hard on myself, but I really started to think, you know, I've actually been really good. I don't really overeat, you know, I mean, often never, in fact. I mean, I really control myself with portion size and everything else. And I've been very active. And typically, like a long time ago, like I'm saying about a decade ago when, you know, and the thing that I always famously bring up, like, I know I lost so much weight in 2013 and 2014. We're going to get back to that in a moment. But I remembered I lost all this weight and I was active and I was eating well and I started eating vegan and I was just, there was so many things that were happening. It was so exciting. I went through a full body transformation in the course of 6 months. We're not talking major gym visits or anything like that, right? Like we're just talking about eating healthier and making just better lifestyle choices. You know, small things too. Small things that became bigger, but small things to start. And you wouldn't expect that necessarily in a 6-month period, maybe a year, maybe a year and a half or 2 years. And here's the change I'm talking about. I was around 300 pounds in 2013. The start of 2013, I was around 300 pounds. At the end of that year, I had dropped about 60 pounds because during, I would say, August or September, my aunt and I, we started doing this prepaid and pre-made meal program where we were just having things delivered to our door. And it was pretty controllable too, right? You know, but at the time I was still thinking like, you know, I'm out of control with my eating. I was probably eating unhealthy fast food, but to be honest, not really out of control. You know, like again, not really crazy with portion sizes, not eating like a ton of calories or a lot of fat or anything like that a day. So, but you know, I mean, though still there were definitely factors, right? So I'm not just saying it wasn't because of my eating. To some degree, yes. But we started this program, and so I lost about 60, you know, pounds very quickly, and then I lost another 40 in 2014 very quickly. By the summer, there wasn't a little piece of fat on me. And not to say that's a bad thing, right? I'm not trying to really praise this about like, oh, fat is bad, skinny is good. It's not really like that. But for me, it's always been a matter of health. And so many things changed during that time too. Little things that I gave credit to other things why it happened, or just getting, healthier. See, I had these weird rashes that started around maybe 2007 in my in the joints of my arms, right? Like, the little, not the armpit necessarily, but right there, right? There were these they look like rashes. They weren't itchy though, but they were bumps, and it was like a cluster of them, and then it got thicker and bigger over time. And there were these large, thick pads that were just around that area, and I couldn't really describe it. It was so strange, and I had no idea why that was there. I had people saying there were liver spots or something, right? Like they were always attributing it to something, right? Because everyone in your life always has some medical expertise, even when they don't. But I had these spots in my arms, and so around 2012 and 2013, I started getting laser hair removal. And I gave a lot of credit to that, right? Like, oh, that's cool. I'm starting to see that change. Then I thought about it, and I'm like, well, kind of, yeah, sure. It happened when I was getting laser, but not like at the beginning, like much further at the end. But then I also started thinking maybe that's not what did that. And what even caused it in the first place? What was that? See, this is an Al Nichols who didn't go see doctors, right? Who let people diagnose me and then, come up with some sort of remedies or whatever, or just live with sickness, right? Just live with sickness. Your mind's not working and functioning correctly. Just live with that, and you'll learn to adapt. And sure, you will adapt somewhat, but you'll really just live at a limited capacity. It's something I'm realizing more and more lately, how limited I have been living. It's kind of like when shit starts happening with your teeth. Got cavities and they start to decay, and get taken care of, and it gets worse. Right now, I just actually scheduled an appointment for next week, but I have to go see a dentist for a variety of different reasons. And, general cleaning. I do brush my teeth every day ever since I got my extreme dental services, almost a decade ago. I've really kept up with it. But the thing I haven't really kept up with is visits and cleanings and things like that, right? Just basic checkups. But the problem is when you don't do the basic checkups, then other things start to form. And of course, plaque starts to form and everything like that. But like I said, I do really well. I don't really have like a lot of dental issues, but I had so many dental issues in the past before that. It's not like you're starting with a clean slate. So yeah, there's a particular tooth that I know is going to probably need a crown. So I'm going to have to go get that taken care of. I need to get an implant because the last dentist I had, they treated a cavity in one of my front upper teeth. And it really either needed to be an implant instead of just, we're going to fix it and patch it and we're going to put a lumineer on it. And, and the other thing that they should have done is either do a bridge, right? Probably what a dental bridge is, right? It connects usually 3 teeth, and they've got to actually like pulverize 2 of your good teeth to, anyway, that's fun. But that probably should have happened, right? There should have been something that happened during that time because that tooth needed support. And so this year, yeah, it came out when I was eating a piece of bread. So yeah. But fortunately I've got insurance now, and I'm getting these things taken care of. And I found a decent temporary kind of situation. That's why I don't really talk about this stuff much. It's just like, I'm an embarrassment. I'm such an embarrassment. Like, yeah, I took care of that in a way. So anyway, but when your mouth starts to decay and it starts to fall apart, when you can't eat on a tooth anymore because it's too sensitive or too painful, you start shifting. And And so you get used to that, right? And that becomes your new normal, but it's not good. It's just what you've adapted to survive, but you could be doing so much better. So when I got all my teeth fixed, holy shit, I had no pain. It was great. I could smile without any issues or without like confidence issues. It was amazing. It was so much, better. Life was so much better. I mean, I was kind of astonished. Like, how was I eating or doing anything before? Why? Why did it? I mean, you can say money, but like, why did I let it get so bad? Why didn't I just try to do something earlier on? Again, it comes from a family of people who refuse to go see doctors. And the only time you see a doctor is when something really bad is happening, mostly because you let something get to that point. So I started to change that narrative this past year and just getting back to, like, I know I've been living this way and I know things feel normal because it's been this way for so long. But what if this is actually normal? Am I really normal? Am I really at my baseline? Or am I at what I've accepted to be my baseline? In the course of this year, that has become clear. I've accepted and tolerated so many things for so long that it just became a normal, quote unquote, part of my life. Like my mental health, my inability to speak clearly, constant brain fog. And you're attributing it to all these things and age. And that's what we do, right? We attribute to what we can kind of like, well, it's probably this, it's probably that, but it may not be. It may be something else. So, talked about 1,000 times now, ADHD. I'm on meds for that. Gender affirming care. I'm on that. I'm doing everything I need to do. The last piece of this puzzle goes back to something I did in 2013 and didn't really think about it being all that important. First of all, let me just claim this. I'm not a doctor. I haven't done scientific research. I don't know this for a fact. I'm speaking on experience. And what I'm currently taking right now is actually medication, not this. But my mom took it for an extended amount of time. And I think this is one of the reasons I wrote it off, because, she gets into a lot of like woo, like, just a lot of like homeopathic medicine woo that I clearly, don't believe in because there's no good reason to believe in it. But back in 2013, she started taking this supplement. And what it was a desiccated thyroid enzyme, DTE. I believe that's what the E is. I think it is enzyme, but maybe I'm wrong. But essentially, it's just a pill. It's bovine thyroid. And the hormones that are released in that when you take it. So it's not vegan, right? Which I didn't know at the time. And I was eating vegan. So, oops. But, and doctors still actually give patients this today when they test, for really high TSH levels and really low T3 and T4 levels. That means you probably have hypothyroidism or, I want to say Hitachi syndrome. It's not that. But there's a few things that you have to like, that have to show number wise before they'll give you medication, which makes sense. But the problem is, determining what a person's baseline is, that can shift. That's not always consistent. And so you're measured on an overall scale. So if you fall within like what's considered to be normal levels for someone, often it's hard to get medication. I didn't know any of this back in 2013. And so at the end of that year, like literally at the end of the year, it was around Thanksgiving, I believe. Mom started talking about this stuff that she was taking, and she took like 3 supplements. Now she had changed a little bit with her diet, but not much more than we were doing. And I was seeing results, but they were really slow. Right. Actually, I said I lost about 60 pounds in that year. I'm not even sure if that's actually the case. it's really hard to say. I did go from 300 pounds in that year, but I actually kind of stopped weighing myself, and scales kind of fuck with my head. And, and now I've completely abandoned a scale. I will never get on a scale again. I know in a doctor's office I might have to, but outside of that, I don't need to know. What I would rather base that off of is measuring tape. A measuring tape can give you very accurate numbers about what your current, size is. And for someone with body dysmorphia, scales, like I say, they fuck with my head, and they send me in a spiral. So I don't touch them. I don't get on them. I have nothing to do with them. I don't own one. I threw out 3 really nice scales because, I just was like, nah, I can't do that. So anyway, my mom started taking 3 different supplements and medications from her research. And one of the things she was taking was DTE. It was the desiccated thyroid. And it was from New Zealand, which is where a lot of these come from. And I really can't say much about the research. I know that there is something called Stop Thyroid Madness, which really gets into the medical industry. Because again, it's like a homeopathic kind of remedy. But from what I've understood, this actually does work. I've seen websites that are non-homeopathic, that are actually more medical science, and actually this stuff does work. And I'm pretty sure one of the biggest reasons I lost as much weight as I did had a lot to do with this. And now I know for a fact, and I'm looking at a pattern. Doesn't necessarily, it doesn't mean that there's a correlation necessarily. So that's why I'm putting big asterisk on all of this. But what I can say is this. I did recently go get my thyroid level tested, and my TSH was very high, like a 7. And my T3 and my T4 were really low. And I don't know those numbers offhand, but they were very low. And honestly, my doctor was just kind of looking at him like, wow, okay. And I was a little alarmed, like, shit. And they prescribed me Lex something, I don't even know, but it is the thyroid medication that they do prescribed. It is synthetic. And in the past, they used to give you something kind of like this desiccated, but, or armor thyroid, right? Like that's what they used to give patients. And you can still find physicians today that will still prescribe you armor thyroid and stuff like that. But if you're seeing a doctor, they're going to probably give you the synthetic stuff. And I honestly, I'm not the person who's like, oh yeah, I have a problem with this or that. No, whatever. But I do know that from that time, when my mom started talking about it, for whatever reason, I decided to start taking it because I honestly did not see her as a total wackadoo when it came to medicine quite yet. I mean, it's more in the recent years that she's gotten even worse with a lot of that, with the colloidal silver and everything like that. But I'm not, by no means am I calling her an idiot, nothing like that. In fact, she just does a really deep dive into stuff. And unfortunately, this is more of a matter of digital literacy, being able to really sniff things out and know how to look for facts and the truth in what you're researching, what you're doing. And people can be very well written. They can put together very, nice websites. It doesn't mean they're not lying to you. It doesn't mean that they're not being deceptive or that they are truly delusional themselves. It just means that they hired a really good web designer, and so anyway, but I took that for starting around right after Thanksgiving. I think my mom gave, my aunt a bottle, and I just was curious and I started taking it, and I never really put the two together. I thought it was more in the other things I was doing, which again, I'm sure it was. I mean, I'm sure making better choices in your life will definitely make an impact, but I noticed dramatic changes, and not necessarily from that, just overall. And I never really attributed that. I mean, and I just never really thought about it. And I'm a person too that eventually I'll forget. I kid you not. Or I'll get to a place where I'm really good and then maybe I run out and then I just forget to restock. And then ultimately I just forget altogether and I just stop taking something because of that. It's a problem. But I took that for probably a year and I kept my weight off. And at some point we stopped doing the pre-planned meals. I just, was eating normally, right? Like not out of control or anything like that, but can't really say that I was like watching calories or consumption, what I was just, and I was pretty active, but we're not talking about like, even going to the gym or doing anything like that. But the weight went off and stayed off as long as I was taking it. And then I realized, at some point I did stop taking it. And when I did, I started to see the weight come back on. Slowly, not immediately, but over time, it started to come off. And, or actually, I'm sorry, it started to come back on, right? Lost train of thought there for a moment. Got a text. ADHD brain, thanks. But yeah, it started to come back on after I was off of it for a little while, and it was very slow. It was gradual. And, but sure enough, over the many years that followed, and I would make drastic like diet changes and stuff like that. And I could to some degree keep it under control, like I wasn't gaining a whole ton of weight, but, still like the things that I had been doing before just weren't working. I mean, I had gotten off vegan at one point and I went back just to, but not like eating like crazy, high calorie, high sugar, anything like that. Just, a lot of fish and some meat here and there, but not as much as I had, but I was still putting on weight. Didn't know why. And then just factors in my life started to change. And because, just sent me into kind of a depression and I did feel like my mind kind of slipping away to some degree. And I didn't know why. I didn't know why I was like hitting a wall. And as I was hitting the wall, I started to see my health continue to deteriorate in other ways too. And ways that it hadn't for a really long time. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I haven't had these symptoms in forever. Like back when, I don't know, my early 20s, I used to have this really like thick phlegm that would get caught up in my throat anytime I ate. And I didn't really know what that was about, but I was overweight. And so I attributed it to that. Which, yeah, I'm sure, like I said, like these things, make sense. But there were other things going on. And now what I know about my thyroid, I'm suspecting it's been this way for a very long time. How this ended up happening, I don't really know. I've done a lot of research since kind of getting this diagnosis. And what I'm finding out is people with hypothyroidism, it can start for a variety of different factors. It usually does run in the family. And my family all actually have, my aunt has been diagnosed with hypothyroidism. My mom never sees doctors, but when she was taking a thyroid supplement, right, it actually was helping. And I believe my grandmother was diagnosed with it, when she was going through her cancer treatments and everything like that. The thyroid wasn't affected, but still I believe that they did talk about her, her numbers not being where they should be. So, this runs in my family as far as I know. And I look back on all these years and, when I was young, when I was like around, well, when I was a child, I was rail thin when I was a kid. And we didn't eat healthy. We ate fast food all the time. Even when I lived with my grandparents, yeah, they occasionally cooked, but as they got older and as my grandmother started working, my grandfather didn't cook very much and his kids worked at McDonald's. So we got free food all the time. So yeah, I started eating a lot of that, but I didn't eat like a ton of food. I didn't gorge myself. But when I started living with my mom in California and the years went on and money was tight, food insecurity played a big factor in me gaining weight. And in my teen years, maybe I put on not much, maybe 10 pounds, right? Like not much at all. And I still stay really, really thin through my teens. I was living in West Virginia for a little while, and I had gone out there and I had a small pooch, right? Like, little baby fat. That's what I called it. But, I had a small, like, little tiny tummy. And I started doing some like basic like exercises and workout, and also food was very secure there, right? Like that's the one thing that was great. Food was secure. Like I had breakfast, lunch, and dinner all the time. Never had to worry about, like, that was the first time in years that I didn't have to worry about going to school without any food and then waiting really late into the evenings until I finally was able to eat something, and it being fast food. And so, yeah, I did a lot better, and I started a little, doing exercise, right? Something that we were doing in health class. We were supposed to make our own plan. And sure enough, that stuff worked. That was great. And that was really good for me. And then when I moved back out here to California, I didn't have food security anymore. Again, it was back to, we may not even have enough money to even go get like $1 menu item from Wendy's or something. And it was back to the really garbage eating and the high stress life, especially being in a cult, and I started to put a little bit of weight back on, right? Not a lot, early on, not a lot. But by the time I was like 16 years old, I'd maybe put on about 25 pounds. And I'd only been here maybe, I don't even know, maybe a year at that point. And I was either 16 or 17 years old. I think I was almost 17 years old, maybe 16 and a half. Doesn't matter. But then I started working at Walmart with my grandmother. And I would ride into work with her. And I was pulling carts. So you're doing heavy exercises all day long. And because I was making a paycheck, I was able to be a little bit more secure on food again. And I needed the calories too for the very demanding job. I mean, we didn't have some machine helping us out. No, I'm pulling all the carts. I'm doing all that heavy labor myself. And I was really in shape. I was really, really fit. And I did that for about a year. And honestly, I looked really good. And then I went to Bible college. I was 17 going on 18. And my food security completely went away again. I'm sitting there usually all day long in Bible college class. No access to food. No one's really being... It's not that students couldn't be generous, even though they're kind of in the same boat. Like a lot of them are dealing with not only having to go to school, but juggle a job. And I kind of had a job, but I was usually always broke, always. And again, I have at the time, not knowing that I had ADHD didn't make it that much easier when it came to controlling money and putting away money for savings and being responsible with that. That was just something that wasn't computing. And I tried, but I didn't understand, why do I keep doing this? Why am I so impulsive with all this buy? Oh, that diagnosis would have been real helpful early on. But I ended up gaining a lot of weight. And the weight just kept coming on and coming on. And I was eating less. I was eating dramatically less. But the weight kept coming on. And so over the next few years, the weight just kept coming on, right? And I became more insecure about it because, well, quite frankly, Christian people were real assholes and had no problem talking about oh, you look like you've gained weight. You put on a lot of weight. And that wasn't anywhere near. I think I was maybe weighing around 220 at the time, but I'm 6 feet tall. I don't look necessarily huge, but I definitely looked bigger than the rail thin person that they knew. Because I look back at those photos now and I'm like, wow, that actually just kind of looks normal to me. Like, I would love to be back at that weight. And, but yeah, I just kept putting on weight, and it got worse and worse and worse. And even when food became more secure, it didn't matter. I just kept putting on weight. So maybe not, but I think maybe a big part of why my thyroid has as many issues as it does, right? Like why it's low functioning, has a lot to do with those insecurities. You know, your body is a machine that needs to be maintained. If you don't put oil in your car, your engine eventually will, crack, right? It's kind of the same with your body. If you're not constantly keeping it, fueled up and maintaining it and doing the maintenance that you need to do, just things are going to start falling apart. Functions that should work are just going to stop working. And so is the story of L. Nichols and their everlasting problem with weight gain. This last year was really bad. Just because no matter what I did, I couldn't seem to get the weight off. But one of the things that I dealt with in early 2020 was food inconsistency again. To some degree, not really because of money. Mostly that was self-inflicted. Making really bad choices when it came to food because I was trying to restrict my calories. Though, I would drink, so I'm also doing damage to my liver and my kidneys. So none of this is helping. And then we get into this year, and, now it has been almost a year of me, since August of last year till now, has been like a gradual progress of making better health choices, eating cleaner, eating better, cooking more, getting more active. And it's not that I'm not seeing any weight loss, but I'm barely seeing anything at all. It's not making sense. And so started doing some sort of research, or I heard something and someone started talking about, their thyroid, and I started remembering, and I was just curious. I'm like, and my aunt mentioned it too. She was like, yeah, I need to actually go get blood test, because I'm being treated for my hypothyroidism. And I'd forgotten a lot about all of this. And so I started doing a little bit more research, and I was looking at the effects of hypothyroidism, and I had every single one of them. In fact, it was like the explanation, like, wow, brain fog, muscle stiffness, and like everything, including the stuff like that's been building up in my throat every day. This is not something I've talked about, and sorry, this might gross some of you out. So go ahead and skip a minute if, hearing about bodily functions grosses you out. I was having like thick mucus and phlegm like build up in my throat every single morning. And I would have it throughout the day too. And I, again, attributed this to being overweight, right? And it kept building up and getting worse. And every morning when I woke up and went to the bathroom, it's like my body instantly knew, time to throw that stuff up. And so that's what I ended up doing every single morning for almost 2 years now. I mean, it wasn't like every morning for 2 years, but in the last year, it's definitely been every morning. And, like I thought maybe it was a variety of things. Maybe it was asthma. Maybe it was a result of having COVID, because it could be very well. And there's all these issues, that they just keep getting worse. So, every day I would get in the shower. If it didn't happen immediately, once I got in the shower and the hot air in the shower got into my lungs, it broke everything apart. And then it just, that's a fun thing to wake up to every day, right? Like, you really get excited about going into the next day when you're going to start the next one, like, coughing up crap, fun. You know, it had been diagnosed as a postnasal drip at one point. It was much more than that. So finally got tested, and now I have thyroid medication. I know, seems like the list of medications I keep taking are like building up, but you know, I'm okay with taking medications. That doesn't concern me. You know, I'm very happy to, in fact, because taking medications now for just this 1 week only. I've only been taking these medications now for 1 week for thyroid. The very next day I woke up and it looked like I had shed like 50 pounds of water weight. My face, like all the puffiness, all the swelling, everything that my face was doing for so long, my face was recognizable for the first time in years. My stomach like had been like protruding pretty dramatically, and every night after I ate, like it was just, and it was like my body wasn't breaking it down, wasn't metabolizing it at all. Yeah, because it probably wasn't. It was just going to my stomach and just sitting there and sitting there. And then the other part of hypothyroidism is constipation and bloating and all this other stuff. And just the first day of taking that medication, dramatic turnaround. And the next morning I woke up and my throat wasn't congested. I wasn't, holding all of that like I normally do. It was the first day that I did not have to wake up. And honestly, it was an emotional moment because I'm sitting over the sink and it's almost like an expectation now. Then, because of how long that's been going on. And nothing. And I mean, I'm like, I got the hot, water on, so the steam kind of rises. Nothing. And now in the last week, it's not like every day I wake up and like I've dropped more weight, but I am noticing that my appetite is back a little bit. I haven't really I would get hungry, but I would always kind of be hungry. And my body's not getting the nutrients it needs. So what does it do? Oh, you're so hungry. Yeah, but you're not getting any nutrition. So I'm putting food in my stomach, but that's it. And then the brain fog. It was like waking up with my brain running on all cylinders for a change. Totally engaged, totally ready to be in the day, be in the moment. I mean, as much as you can be in the moment having ADHD, but because you're never really present. But I was awake. Like my mind was awake. Like my brain had defragmented, and I was just, and I felt normal, and I was breathing normal. It sucks waking up in the morning too when your sinuses are congested, or going to sleep at night and you start to get like really stuffy so you can really not breathe well. I have slept so wonderfully the last week. Like when I go to sleep, I am just out, and I haven't slept like that in a very long time. And, and for like when I do sleep, it feels very refreshing. And when I get up, I feel prepared and ready to get up. It's not painful. Like it's not like mentally painful and physically painful at the same time. And I can feel like the other medications I'm taking, I think it's hard to determine at this moment. But if I had that and it was, my hormones aren't properly being regulated and I'm taking hormone replacement therapy, you can imagine that's not as effective as you would hope it would be. And just in the last week, I've just noticed that even though like these medications had an impact, I felt very, very good, very healthy for a change. And I noticed immediately that a lot of clothes that haven't fit for a long time, starting to fit again. And there's still some, bloat fluctuation, but not as severe as it had been. And I was holding on to that bloat just constantly, no matter how much water I drank, no matter how much I tried to, keep my body hydrated. It was just holding on to all of it. It was almost like my body was just like, no, we're not letting this go. Once it goes in, it stays in. But now, I just noticed like a lot of different things going on, and they're all very positive, and it's exciting. Who would have thought? Like getting on medication and figuring out like what health defects you have. But this has been such a good time for me. And I love being able to sit here on the podcast for a change instead of talk about all the negative. There's so much negative. Talking about some of the really great positive things happening. So, look, I don't think anyone should just go out and start taking even supplements, without like some sort of consultation with your doctor. I mean, I've actually seen a lot of doctors not prescribe, but recommend, because you can't prescribe it. But they recommended like, the DTE supplements and stuff like that. And if you think you have a problem, and I know a lot of people too deal with frustration where they won't get prescribed medication. The doctors tell them that, the key is to lose weight. And it's like, how do you lose weight if you're dealing with a low functioning thyroid? That's very hard to do. One is working against the other. So I understand it, but at the same time, the American healthcare system is flawed. It really is. You do have medicines and drugs that do certain things. You have treatments that work better than others, but because of insurance or because of, policies and things like that doctors have and regulations and laws and rules, you just have to think sometimes the care that you get isn't necessarily the best care. It's not to say that it's not, decent care. But in some cases, it's definitely not. I listened to Cognitive Dissonance and Tom on that podcast, his wife, recently, I forget exactly what she had, C. diff. I think she had C. diff. And there's a procedure that works very well, and it's highly recommended, but it's not covered by insurance. And because it's not covered by insurance, they won't even do it. So they literally had to pay out of pocket, and the system's just not even set up properly in some cases. So this is a reality. I never want to go to some sort of like extreme and say that, like a lot of people, who are into homeopathy, like, all medicine, is bullshit. And doctors are trying to poison you and do all this shit. That's not true. At the same time, it's not guaranteed that everything that you do will be great, will be perfect. Sometimes they're not giving you the better options just because insurance won't cover them. So these are realities, right? Because we live in a broken system. So sometimes you have to do a little bit of homework and you have to figure out what's going on. I'm very, very lucky that I got tested when I did, and that I was prescribed medication. I'm very happy about that. I actually read a lot of people online too who have hypothyroidism and were taking the medications that I'm currently taking. At some point, they switched to the DTE stuff. And actually, they say, again, something that I would have to do further research in. And then before I could ever say, like, you got to do that research for yourself. Never, ever let someone like me or anyone else tell you, like, this is something that works and you should do it. No, you should always talk to someone who actually is credentialed and educated and knows what the fuck they're talking about. That is not me. I am literally talking about the fact that I've only learned a lot about this stuff in the last few weeks. So I'm just sharing the information that I have in hopes that many of you who are listening who maybe put things off, stop putting it off. Stop letting reasons, right? Even reasons that seem good, get in the way of you being healthy. I know it's really hard. I know when you don't have insurance, and trust me, I only got insurance again just last month. So it is very hard, very frustrating. You just want your goddamn health to be okay. And we make it so difficult in this country. Unless you are obscenely rich, you're probably living with a lot of ailments, a lot of illnesses, sicknesses, conditions that not in every case can be cured. But there are remedies, there are solutions, there's medications and therapies and things that do work. And your health is worth it. Your health is worth it. And I know that, that's coming from a place of convenience too, and I understand that. But my point is that you should always be fighting for that, even when you can't. You still need to fight for it. You need to do whatever you can to be the best version of yourself. I hate that statement. I don't like that. No, look, everyone should just be healthy. This isn't some motivational speech. This isn't some self-help bullshit about living your best life. And I just sat in a nail shop and I was watching the Drew Barrymore show, and actually it's kind of funny, but I notice a lot of times too when people come on and do their interviews, especially athletes and actresses and stuff like that, and they sit down there and they're talking. One of them started talking today about just I worked really hard and I have this thing and it's always been a thing in my life. No one's going to give you anything, so you got to really work hard and do all of this. And I'm just like, we hear these messages a lot, work really hard and you do all of this and you will be able to get what you want. And it's like, well, I always feel like that starts with what position you started in life with. If you come from a functional family, people who weren't maybe abusing you, or people who weren't poor, people impoverished, or people living in, unlivable conditions, but still living there, then maybe you start in a different place in life, and then, these things then work. But when you don't have that, then it's like, yeah, in order to do that, first you got to get into therapy and you got to get your mind sorted out. And then you got to go actually see a doctor and get medications and prescriptions. And then you got to change your diet. But having a diet that, is good costs money. There's so much. It's not like 1, 2, 3. So my point is, it's worth fighting for. Right? To have those things that you never had, it's worth fighting for. You don't have to feel defeated. You don't have to get, frustrated like I do when I hear bullshit like that. I'm sure these people have no, ill intentions. It's not like that. But still, when you've come from shit, when you've come from poverty, the last thing you want to hear is just, you got to work really hard. Yeah, I watched the people in my life work really fucking hard. And they didn't get massive rewards for that. They got punished over and over and over again. And I still am concerned about those people in my life too, because they're getting older. And there isn't really a good social safety net. Yeah, it makes me really afraid. It does. It makes me very afraid. And not just for them, but for myself too. We're just so lucky. We're so lucky. That's really all this boils down to. This wasn't strategy. This wasn't because we worked really hard and we've worked really hard, but we're still not in a position where we can be comfortable. So anyway, it's worth fighting for, though. Because I believe, I can't say what the outcome of any fight will be. You never know. But often I know even when you lose a fight, someone watched that happen And that's not the inspirational message that people want to hear. Like, sometimes you're going to lose the fight. But, it might be valuable to someone else. I mean, but that is even the nature of this podcast. I don't know how this is all going to turn out. I have no idea. I have great dreams and aspirations for my life. There are things I want to do, things that I want to achieve. There's places I want to take this podcast. There's so much I want to do. But will that ever pan out? I don't know. But I'd rather live trying and fail than just to give up and accept, everything. I mean, like, what kind of reality is that? Then I might as well just be dead. So fight like hell. I mean, actually, no. Well, who uses that? Steven Crowder? No, don't listen to fucking Steven Crowder. But I just mean, like, yeah, fight for you. Don't fight for someone's politics or someone's agenda. No, fight for you. Fight for you. You're worth it. And you know what? This is where this information kind of fits. And sometimes you can't expect anyone else to fight for you. So fight for you. When you do that, you just don't even realize how many other people you're actually fighting for when you do that too. And then you start to realize that, oh wow, a lot of us are all fighting. Wait, we're all fighting the same thing. We should organize and we should come together and, like the Power Rangers, and then getting a giant mech and just beat the shit out of some monsters. You want to picture that monster being Mitch McConnell or any other douchebag, please do. Any other douchebag. We're going to go out there and we're going to beat the shit out of some giant kaiju douchebags. Anyway, that is where I am this week, right? I'm getting healthy again. I'm losing weight. Just, let's be a little vain here for a moment, right? The health part, 100%, that is why I'm doing this. But the vain part of me that just wants to be able to fit in clothes and look cute again, I think we all know this. So let me use this point of discretion. I adore people at various sizes. I don't look at a person who is a size that is considered normal or that you can easily find in a department store or, whatever like social definition we've given them, like, oh, ideal. No, I don't look at people like that at all. I love people of all sizes. That is not bullshit. You can go see who I follow on Instagram, and I love people of their different sizes with their different backgrounds. I mean, different everything. What I really love about a person is a person who's just confident. But that confidence comes from a place, and it's for some people it is their size. When they reach a size that they're uncomfortable with, or it could be their health or a variety of things, they can lose that confidence. It doesn't mean they're ugly because of that, and it doesn't mean I've been ugly because I have been fighting with my weight for so long and my health. It doesn't mean I'm ugly. But do I feel confident inside because of that? No, not really. Truth is that if I'm healthy and I'm doing well, I can actually be confident at any size that I'm at. I was actually, like, I got down to, it still sounds, like a larger size, right? Because, but again, I'm 6 feet tall. I'm built pretty wide, just like, broad shoulders and, there's just factors, right? But I got down to like a size 14, close to a 12. And honestly, I didn't feel confident. I couldn't see it. I was still fighting with my dysmorphia and so many other things that, were yet to be diagnosed, and I didn't know. And honestly, I kind of hated myself. Didn't want to. And that's a really complicated story for another time, and I will get into it. But But for right now, you just have to understand you have to fight for you. And that fight, maybe it's even just a fight for your confidence. You know, you're worth loving. You have to be the first one in your life to love yourself before. I think it's a better pattern. If you look for someone to love you before you love yourself, then they can really fuck with that definition. You can really set yourself up. I mean, you would have to be lucky beyond all belief to be in a normal, healthy relationship where someone really builds you up and loves you before you even love yourself. I've heard friends in the past say that's the way it works for them. They can't love themselves, so they find people in their life who can love them. And many times I have to tell you, they get mistreated and they're vandalized and morally destroyed. It's so heart-wrenching to watch that. And I've seen it with people that I really love over and over and over again. And it was also a little frustrating because it was like, you know, my love wasn't enough. And it never would be. That's the point. Because even though I can love someone and yeah, you know, if you're with me and I love you, regardless of if you love yourself, you're lucky in that way. But ultimately over time, if you don't really find that love in yourself and you need to still find that through acceptance in other people, you know, and these other factors, then because you have to fight for that too. I mean, doesn't it suck that you have to fight to love yourself as well? But you do. At the moment, we have no way of transferring your consciousness into another body. I know. I've looked into this. I have looked into this shit. It just doesn't exist. And what I experience in therapy, what I go through every single week is falling more in love with myself. Not just because I don't really have much choice in the matter, so I can either hate myself or love myself, but those are the choices. And obviously loving is a lot better than hate. But I'm finding myself in a position where I want to, really want to, and it's easy. And it's a fight though. Still, even though it's gotten easier, it's a fight. So that is where I'm going to leave you with this week. We got 57 minutes here and almost 58. We're getting close to the end. I'm just going to whisper a little bit here as we get to the end of this podcast. I just want to thank you very much for joining me here on The Elemental Experience. Let me just stroke your hair. A little ASMR for you as we come to a close. Hi there. How are you feeling today? Good. I've been told many times that I should do ASMR. That I have a very calming, silky voice with a nice resonance. Maybe that's all this podcast will be. Maybe now that actually, unless you hate ASMR and find this incredibly irritating, then I'm very sorry. You can just stop listening now because I'm going to keep doing this because, well, fuck your feelings now. Because I don't know how to close this out. So let me just tell you. I'm going to tell you to my voice and to escape the ordinary. Goodbye, everybody.
This concludes this entry of the Elemental Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, head over to houseofl.com to gain access to our show notes, additional podcasts, the photo diary, and more. If you're feeling financially benevolent and would like to support this podcast, go to patreon.com/elemental, and for as little as $1 per entry, you'll get an ad-free version of this podcast, patron-only monthly live stream Q&As, and Elle's everlasting gratitude. Music was provided by Damn The With Siren, featuring the songs Big Mouth and Soft and Blue. All music was used with the artist's permission. If you want to hear more of their incredible music, go to damnthewitchsiren.com. For inquiries, questions, or last letters, email info@lnichols.com or visit the contact page at houseofl.com. The Elemental Podcast is a subsidiary of House of L. Copyright 2019, all rights reserved.